I sit by the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown office, the soft hum of traffic below barely piercing the quiet bubble I've built around myself. My silk blouse brushes against my wrist as I cradle my coffee mug, noticing the faint chip in my nail polish, the kind of detail I'd normally laugh off. But today, nothing feels ordinary. My phone buzzes, vibrating against the polished oak desk. I glance at the screen, and my heart skips. It's a message from my parents. Can we come by? Just for a chat. My lips press into a thin line, and I feel the familiar tug of old wounds, mockery, dismissive smirks, laughter at my pointless degree. They always called it a waste of time, a fancy piece of paper with no value. Back then, I had wanted nothing more than to prove them wrong. Now, I sip my coffee, aware of the quiet power I hold in this space they never imagined I could reach. The office smells faintly of leather and fresh ink from the awards displayed on the shelves behind me, silent reminders of years of work they scoffed at. My fingers trace the edge of a framed quote from my grandmother. Believe in the unseen. Success is patience turned into action. I let out a small, ironic smile. If they only knew. If they only saw how far I'd come. And soon they will. I remember the sting of their laughter like it was yesterday. I was 22, fresh out of college, clutching my diploma from a modest but respected university in my hands. My parents, Richard and Karen Mitchell, didn't look proud. Instead, they exchanged glances, smirks tugging at their lips. So, what now? Teaching toddlers how to count, my dad asked, leaning back in the worn leather chair of our family living room. His tone was sharp, almost triumphant, as if he was daring me to fail. My mother chimed in. You spent all that money for this? Maybe you should have picked something practical like accounting. Or law. Anything that actually matters. My chest tightened. My hands, gripping the diploma, trembled. Not from fear, but from the rage and humiliation I couldn't let show. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat refusing to budge. You don't understand, I whispered, my voice cracking. I want to create something meaningful, something that lasts. They shook their heads, dismissive, and I felt the cold isolation settle over me. It wasn't just the words, it was the certainty that they believed I was destined to fail. The laughter, the sneers, it was an invisible chain binding me to their expectations. That evening, in the quiet of my childhood bedroom, I opened the small wooden box my grandmother had given me on my graduation day. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, shaped like an open book, engraved with the words, "Trust the path you cannot yet see." She had always believed in me, even when my own parents didn't. Her faith ignited a stubborn spark inside me. I stayed up all night, staring at that pendant, feeling its weight against my palm. I didn't know how I would do it. I didn't know where to start. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't let their laughter define my life. By morning, I had made a decision. I would leave their doubts behind, forge my own path, and build something they could never mock. I packed my essentials, kissed my little brother goodbye, and walked out of the house that had always felt too small, too critical, too suffocating. Independence wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a promise. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Chicago, the kind where the walls were thin and the floors creaked with every step. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I laid the silver pendant from my grandmother on the kitchen counter, letting its weight remind me that someone believed in me, even if my parents never would. I started small, tutoring kids in the neighborhood, offering creative writing and reading classes. Every session felt like a small rebellion against the voice of doubt I had carried for so long. Each child who smiled, each parent who praised me, became a brick in the foundation of my confidence. Then came my mentor, Clara Dawson, a retired educator known for transforming failing schools into thriving institutions. She saw something in me that my parents had never recognized: vision, determination, and a stubborn refusal to settle. "Alex," she said one rainy afternoon, "you have the fire, but fire alone isn't enough. You need strategy. You need patience. And you need to believe in the long game." I took her advice seriously. Nights blurred into mornings as I balanced tutoring, writing lesson plans, and networking with education professionals. My hands ached from scribbling notes. My eyes burned from reading endless reports and studies. But every challenge, every late-night phone call, every small failure became a stepping stone. I landed my first real breakthrough when I helped a struggling after-school program turn a small profit through creative workshops. The kids were thrilled, the parents impressed, and I felt an unfamiliar but exhilarating sensation: competence. I was proving to myself, more than anyone else, that I could succeed on my own terms. Slowly, I built a reputation. Word-of-mouth referrals turned into consistent clients, small workshops expanded into full-scale programs, and I began to quietly save money, reinvesting every cent into my dream: a school that combined rigorous academics with creative exploration, a place where children would thrive without judgment. Through it all, I kept my parents in the dark. I posted carefully curated updates on social media, photos of community events, generic teaching quotes, nothing that would betray the scale of my growing empire. I wanted them to underestimate me, just as they always had, because the day they discovered the truth, I wanted it to hit with the full weight of surprise. And while the world outside my apartment often seemed skeptical, inside, I was unstoppable. I had transformed ridicule into motivation, doubt into determination, and a single silver pendant into a symbol of the life I was determined to create. The knock on my office door echoed through the high-ceilinged room, pulling me out of the spreadsheets and budgets I had been reviewing. My heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from anticipation. I knew who it was before I even looked up: my parents. "Alex, can we come in?" My father's voice carried the same casual tone he always used when he thought he was in control. I smiled, calm and deliberate, and gestured toward the chairs across from my desk. Of course. They entered, taking in the space with barely concealed curiosity. The office was nothing like the cramped living room of my childhood. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, bouncing off the polished mahogany desk. Abstract art adorned the walls, and neatly stacked bookshelves held everything from pedagogy classics to leadership memoirs. Awards and certificates glimmered subtly on shelves, each a quiet testament to years of unrelenting work. Their eyes widened as they noticed the modern leather chairs, the gleaming awards, the sleek glass tabletop etched with the logo of the school I had built from scratch. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the nearest chair, and my father's jaw tightened, an unspoken mixture of disbelief and curiosity flashing across his face. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands gracefully. "I suppose you expected to see me struggling," I said, my voice smooth but firm, carrying just the right amount of irony. Maybe barely keeping the lights on, maybe still figuring out what to do with that pointless degree of mine. They exchanged a quick, guilty glance, neither daring to respond. "Let me show you something," I continued. I tapped the screen on my desk, bringing up a presentation of the school's growth over the past 5 years: enrollment numbers, academic awards, innovative programs, and financial reports showing a healthy profit margin. "This," I said, gesturing to the logo and the images of happy students, "is the school you once mocked. It's not just surviving, it's thriving. And yes, I own it." A pause. Silence. Then the reactions hit like a tidal wave. My mother's lips parted, her hands clutching the edge of her chair. My father's eyes darted from the screen to me, disbelief etching deep lines into his face. "You own this," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Yes," I said, letting the word linger. "I built it from nothing, without your support, without your approval, and certainly without your encouragement. All the things you said I couldn't do, I did them anyway." Their faces shifted from shock to guilt. I saw the realization settle in. The daughter they dismissed had surpassed every expectation they had set. I could almost hear the echo of their earlier laughter, now replaced by stunned silence. I let them take it in fully, letting the weight of years of doubt, of sneers, of mockery, hang in the air. Then I added softly but firmly, "And now, if you want to be part of this world, it will be on my terms." For the first time in my life, I held the power. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in the quiet, undeniable authority of someone who had turned ridicule into triumph. The room, once filled with parental dominance, now vibrated with the possibility of respect and recognition, something I had earned every step of the way. I sat back in my chair, letting the silence stretch just long enough for them to feel the shift. The parents who had once ruled my world with mockery and doubt were now completely disarmed. I could see the subtle tremor in my mother's fingers, the rigid set of my father's shoulders. The power was no longer theirs. It had quietly, irrevocably, shifted to me. Here's the thing, I began, my voice calm but uncompromising. I built something incredible. And because you're my parents, I'm giving you a chance to be part of it. But it will not be on your terms. It will be on mine. I leaned forward slightly. First, I said, locking eyes with my father, you will stop dismissing people's passions. Mockery and condescension are not welcome here. You'll approach challenges with curiosity, not judgment. He swallowed, nodding slowly. The shame was there, plain as day, but I didn't soften. Not yet. And you, I turned to my mother, you'll stop pushing everyone to live the life you imagined for them. I want you to focus on something that makes you happy, something that's truly yours. No more unsolicited critiques, no more comparing me or anyone to some imaginary ideal. My words hung in the air, each condition a mirror of the pain they had caused me. I wasn't punishing them. I was teaching them the rules of this new dynamic. Growth, respect, and accountability were non-negotiable. I paused, letting them absorb it, and then added the final condition. You will treat this school and everyone in it with respect. I built it from the ground up, and I will not tolerate undermining or interference. If you want to be part of this family, this space, you will honor the work it took to get here. Their eyes met mine, wide, a mix of awe, guilt, and a tentative understanding. I could see the wheels turning in their minds. They understood that this wasn't about revenge. This was about balance, boundaries, and reclaiming dignity for the first time. I softened slightly, a small smile tugging at my lips. I'm giving you a chance because I care, not because you deserve it automatically. But if you want to rebuild your relationship with me, this is the starting line. There was a long pause. Then my mother's voice, hesitant but genuine, whispered, Alex, we didn't realize. We were wrong. I nodded, letting the words settle like a bomb. I could feel the tension in the room ease slightly, though I knew this was only the beginning. Change doesn't happen overnight. But they had a choice now, continue old patterns or step into the new world I had built, a world of respect, growth, and possibility. I picked up my grandmother's silver pendant from the desk, holding it between my fingers. It had guided me through doubt, through struggle, through the loneliness of being underestimated. Now it symbolized something bigger, the power to create, to demand respect, and to shape not just my destiny, but the environment around me. For the first time, I felt the full weight of my independence, coupled with the quiet satisfaction of giving those who doubted me the opportunity to change. Compassion and firmness, I realized, could coexist. And that balance, my balance, was something I would never surrender. Weeks passed after that confrontation, and slowly, subtly, I began to see changes. My father stopped offering unsolicited critiques at board meetings, instead asking thoughtful questions about curriculum and student engagement. My mother started volunteering in areas she genuinely enjoyed, art programs and literacy workshops, her enthusiasm contagious. It wasn't perfection, but it was progress, and it felt earned. I watched them from the corner of my office one afternoon, smiling at a group of students performing a science demonstration. Their laughter was lighter now, their posture less rigid, their eyes softer. It was a quiet redemption, one I had not expected to see so quickly. They were learning to respect me, and themselves in ways they never had before. I returned to my desk and picked up my grandmother's silver pendant. Holding it, I thought of all the late nights, the small victories, the moments of doubt that could have broken me if not for that spark of faith she had given me. Every step, every struggle, had led to this, a life that was mine entirely, built on my terms, and shared only with those willing to meet me halfway. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, letting the sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows warm my face. The office no longer felt like just a workplace. It was a sanctuary of triumph and self-respect. I had endured ridicule, skepticism, and dismissal, yet here I was, not just surviving but thriving. And my parents, finally willing to see me, not as the child they underestimated, but as the woman who had become unstoppable. I set the pendant down and straightened the papers on my desk. My eyes caught the gleam of the awards lining the shelves, a subtle reflection of the persistence and patience it had taken to reach this point. And I knew, with a calm certainty, that no one could ever take this from me. Not my parents, not the world, not even my own doubts. I smiled softly, a mixture of gratitude, strength, and serenity. The journey had been long, painful, and transformative. I had learned that respect is earned, boundaries are sacred, and success tastes sweetest when it is forged in the fire of disbelief. And as I looked out over the city skyline, I whispered to myself, a quiet affirmation that would carry me through all the chapters yet to come. I am the architect of my life, and no one's doubt can ever undo what I've built.